Greetings, fellow Trekkies and Trekkers. Thank you so much for your continued support. And so today, Remembering Star Trek continues as I take a look at the Star Trek film franchise. Sorry, and of course, what better way to start than at the beginning with Star Trek: The Motion Picture. This was the very first Star Trek movie that came out in theaters, and it came out in 1979, which I believe was also the same year that Ridley Scott's Alien came out in theaters. So basically, two huge franchises. They got their start in the late 1970s, and of course, it was because of the success of another certain film that came out in the 1970s called Star Wars, that these huge, big, blockbuster sci-fi franchises, they just started coming out. You know, all these big, huge franchises. You know, Terminator, RoboCop. Again, all these big, huge science fiction franchises that we know and love today. It all happened because of Star Wars, and because of that, basically, yes, as Linkara mentioned when he did his review of the comic book adaptation of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, Star Wars saved Star Trek, and that is awesome. So, yeah, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the plot of the movie, and I'll talk about the things about the movie that I like, and certain things about it that I don't necessarily like, or things I don't really care for a lot much. So, basically, the plot of this movie is that Kirk is now an admiral, but he's given a temporary demotion to captain's, so that he can be the captain of the Enterprise again. And basically there's this cloud entity thing that's coming toward Earth, and apparently, since, as always, the Enterprise was the only ship in range, they're the only ones that can catch up to the cloud and find out exactly what it is, why it's going toward Earth, and all this stuff. And there's lots of sci-fi stuff that goes on in this movie. But other than that, it's a very enjoyable movie, and I know a lot of people like to make comparisons between this film and 2001: A Space Odyssey, particularly because of its slow pacing. However, I don't mind the slow pacing at all, not one bit. You know, I mean, especially nowadays, since all the movies out there have such fast pace, and there's barely any time to take a breather, to slow down, say, okay, here's what we're going to plan to do in the next act, but in the meantime, let's just take a breather, slow down, and, you know, just try to relax for a little bit. But in this movie, I really don't mind the slow pacing all that much, because it allows the audience to have enough time to digest what they are seeing on the screen, and all the lines of dialogue and stuff like that. It doesn't go too fast, but to me it doesn't go too slow either. It's medium at best. So yeah, and also the uniforms. Now this is going in the category of things I don't like. The uniforms, they're just okay. You know, they look more like pajamas than uniforms, to be honest. So yeah, I really don't get that. Yeah, but as far as the things I do like, I love the effects in this movie. They look great. I know that some of them were unfinished by the time this movie came out, but luckily on the director's cut DVD, you do get to see more of the effects, especially the ones that they were able to do for the DVD because of the advent of CGI and all that stuff. So there you go. And another huge thing about this movie that I love is the score by the late great Jerry Goldsmith. He does an amazing job doing the music for this movie, and I love it. To me, it's one of the best film scores of all time, right up there with E.T. and Star Wars and the Pirates of the Caribbean movies and the Back to the Future movies. You know, those are classic, iconic scores, and this movie's score is no exception. I love it. But ironically, speaking of the score, I don't necessarily like the overture that plays before the opening credits. I really don't care for that all that much. And yes, I get it, it's one of the big themes you hear throughout the movie, but I just really don't understand why it had to happen before the opening credits. I mean, I don't get that. But there you go. And also, speaking of the music, one of the opening piece you hear during the opening credits of the movie, you know, that'll da 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 da. That was later used for the opening music for Star Trek: The Next Generation. For those of you who don't know that, so there you go. But yeah, and finally going back to the categories of things I do like. The production design of this movie is spectacular. I love it. The newly redesigned Enterprise looks great, and I understand why they did it. It's because the way the Enterprise looked in the original series, it didn't necessarily scream, you know, could be what the Enterprise goes to look like on the big screen. No. They changed that, and it looks good. Looks good. I love it. It's fantastic. And finally, the last thing I didn't like about this movie, or something that I didn't really care for, was the relationship between Decker and Ilia. Now, don't get me wrong. The actors were great. Stephen Collins and the late great Persis Khambatta, they did a great job playing those characters. But other than that, there really wasn't anything about them that I particularly liked. You know, Decker, he's all whining me because, Kirk took my... Kirk's being captain now. I'm a first officer now. Blah, blah, wah, wah, wah. Decker, shut your pie hole, okay? Seriously. But that Ilia, she was just okay. Again, I'm not saying anything bad against Persis Khambatta. It's just the character I didn't really necessarily like, you know? I mean, she doesn't really do anything of impact besides being turned into a probe for V'ger or something like that. That's pretty much her purpose in the movie, and that's it. That's just it. So there you go. Other than that, I really do like this movie. It's fantastic. It's great. Again, the musical score is awesome, and it's just one of those movies you have to experience. Again, harkening back to the comparisons between this film and 2001: A Space Odyssey, it's more of an experience movie, and that's something great about this franchise. You know, it doesn't all have to be, you know, space battles and, you know, firing phasers or shooting photon torpedoes every 10 minutes, you know. I mean, most movies can get away with, like, maybe one or two action sequences, and that's just fine, you know. But, again, in this movie, there really aren't that many action sequences, and that's totally fine. So, you know, it's not like a big action movie, you know. It's more like a spiritual... I'm not going to say spiritual movie, but it's a movie that gets you thinking about things. It's a thinking person's movie, I guess you could say. So, there you go. So thank you guys so much for watching. And next week, Remembering Star Trek will continue with the one film in the franchise that everyone considers to be the best one in the entirety of the Star Trek franchise, and that, of course, is Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. So, thank you guys so much for your continued support. I cannot do what I do without you, and tune in next week as Remembering Star Trek continues with Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. So until then, live long and prosper. Bye.